Hey everybody, Chef Eric Eisenbud here, the Grateful Chef with Steak Ager. Answering that question, what else can we do with the trimmings that we trim off of our dry aged subprimals? So today we're doing dry aged beef stock. I get asked the question all the time, how do we make dry aged beef stock? So for me, making dry aged beef stock is really an exercise in what do I got in the fridge? You know, most of the time we all have onions and garlic and stuff like that, but what do I got in the fridge that I can throw in and make this beef stock? So it's really a very fluid recipe, even as far as measurements go. Everything, I guess, is based on how much pellicle I have. So what I do is when I trim a roast, I will vacuum seal. I'll separate the pellicle from the fat that I cut off. I'll vacuum seal them, and I will accumulate pellicle in my freezer until I have enough where it makes sense for me to make beef stock. Today I had 3 packages of random pellicle from different dry aging sessions, and I think I will probably end up making Demi Glace out of this. That's where you take the stock and you bring it all the way down, and that is used in pan sauces and stuff like that, and it's really cool, but you got to make the stock first. So that's what we're going to do. So here I've got, again, 3 maybe 1.5 quart size bags of pellicle that I vacuum sealed. And what I'm doing is I'm taking out the bigger pieces. So you can see when we trim the pellicle off our steaks, we get pieces like this, you know, the side pieces. These are all fine and good, but we also trim off the end pieces. And that's what I have right here. Got some end pieces that I trimmed off. And so these just need to be broken down into smaller pieces because you want everything to fit nicely in the pot with your vegetables. We're going to cut these. Again, these have been frozen, they've been defrosted. I can smell the dry aged beef flavor, it's unbelievable. So this is really great, and dry aged beef stock can be used anywhere that you use regular beef stock. So I'm just going to cut these real quick down through, maybe twice each slice. Some nice meat on here, so that is definitely going to make for some tasty stock. So use find an appropriate vessel to make this stock in. So if you have a choice from several sizes, choose the bigger one rather than try and cram everything into a smaller one, because this way you don't have to fill the pot with water if you don't need to, but you'll have enough room for everything to kind of get together and marry and everything. So I've got my pot here on the stove. I'm going to turn the flame up a little bit. You want to come over to the stove with me? Take a little avocado oil just to get things started. And what I want to do first is I want to kind of give us a nice little toasting of our pellicle. So, putting it in. And, you know, of course, it's got some fat on it, so that's going to help render it out. I want to, you know, get this going over some high heat, just to get it started. And then we're going to talk about what else we're going to add to the pot. So I got my heat on high. And again, you want to toast this up. Alright, so while that's getting going, let's talk about vegetables. I'll come back to this and give it another stir. Beautiful. Smells great. Okay, so now, again, an exercise in what do I have in the fridge. Alright, obviously I've got mushrooms, onions, going into my vegetable drawer, and I'm going to see what I have. So I have some carrots. And anything that's starting to go, get a little old, great. I have some celery, and I like to buy my celery with the celery leaves because they're tons and tons of flavor. We got that. I've got some scallions. I've got a leek. I got a leek over here. And you know what? I even got a bulb of fennel. Why don't we put that in too? Oh, look, parsley stems and some bay leaves. Awesome. All So nothing needs to be fancy or pretty here. So let's start with the onions. I am just simply going to, I don't even have to cut the top off. We're going to keep them whole because this whole thing is going to get strained. So I'm going to cut this into just quarters or eighths, whatever you want to do. And that's going to go into the pot. Got another small onion here. I'll just cut it in half. All right. I got some random heads of garlic here. Just going to crush them. And those are going to go in the pot. Another one. This is a big head of garlic. Don't necessarily want this stem in there. Separate these up. You can hear the snap, crackle, and pop going on. We give this a quick stir. Oh, the dry aged beef flavor. Let's turn my heat down a little bit. That aroma of dry aged beef, killer, look at that. So you're getting them nice and toasted, nice and coated. You're just going to develop a nicer level of flavor, and if you brown the meat a little bit, you're going to get a darker, richer stock, and that's what you want. All right, what else do I have here? My celery. I'm going to take about that much. Again, using the leaves and everything, cutting them up. Beautiful. That's going to go in the pot, out the root. And I am also going to take off some of these extra leaves because I love the flavor. It's an aromatic, and that's exactly what you want. So all these celery leaves are going in. I've got a leek here. I'm going to cut the top off just because that looks like it's getting a little old. I'm going to cut it in half and see if it needs to be washed. If it does, we'll run a little water through them. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to give a quick rinse. Up in between those layers, because the leeks grow in the dirt. You just peel them back and look for it. It's only really up at the top. That's it. Okay, we're going to do a nice chunk here. Alright, leek. You can see I've got a fennel bulb that's going a little bit. Maybe I'll take the outer layer off. These all look okay, although, you know, you can tell it's old, which is perfectly fine. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to cut this. Maybe I'll cut it down just so I can fit it. I'll do quarters on this. It's all going in. And maybe cut that off because I don't like the way it looks. Boom, boom, boom. Really simple. Use what you have. We got a carrot. Now, I'm going to be careful with carrots because carrots offer sweetness. I don't necessarily want a super sweet stock, so I'm going to go easy on the carrots. All rough chopped. Don't even have to peel it. It's going to be strained. Do one more. Well, I have those scallions. You know, one recipe calls for the greens, another calls for the whites. Just throw them in. Then I will just separate the whites from the greens. Going in whole. Maybe one more. So this is a great way to clear the fridge. Make sure you cut the rubber bands off because that does not make for good eats. Alright, so we've got our vegetables. We'll put our parsley stems in at the end once we get all these other vegetables in. Clean this up a bit. All right. Here we go. Let's go over to the stove. Now look at what's happening here. You're getting that beautiful Maillard effect. You're getting, that is going to make the color of this beef stock beautifully dark brown. If you wanted to, you could put a little tomato paste in here. I've got it. Why not? It'll again add some color to the beef stock. Beautiful. All right. Now you got a nice amount of rendered fat in there. We're going to put our vegetables in. Like so. Easy, easy. And give them a nice stir. And you can see now why we need a nice big pot. We have enough room to stir everything up. Yep. Jumpers. Now this is going to cook for quite a while. Like, you know, you really never want to bring a stock to a boil because then it makes it cloudy. So you really want to kind of bring it to just under a boil and then let it get to a simmer. And I like to cook mine covered because that keeps all the stuff in there. So once you get all those vegetables in there and going, I am going to add a little bit, not a little bit, a lot of bit of whole peppercorns. These are again aromatics for seasoning. And all gets strained out. And a couple of bay leaves, which I've got over here. I've got some fresh bay leaves that I buy. And actually, I buy these at a Mexican market. It's hard to find fresh bay leaves in many markets, but my Spanish market has them. I'm going to put in 4 bay leaves. Love them. One more quick stir. And final ingredient, some water. About 6 quarts. I may need more, we'll see. Beautiful. You've noticed I did not put any salt in here. I want my stock unsalted, and this way when I go to use it, I can salt it appropriately for whatever dish I'm making. And especially if I think I'm going to make the Demi glaze out of this, which was a reduction, you don't want to salt it now and then have it super salty when you get to your final stage. All right, I'm going to add a tiny bit more water. And so far I've shown you how easy it is to make beef stock. Okay, so our stock cooked for 8 hours, and after the 8 hours was done, I strained it out, got all the solids out there, strained it through a nice fine mesh sieve. I put it in this container and then I put it in the fridge overnight, and I'll tell you why. Put it in the fridge overnight, and you probably know this, the fat will raise to the top, it'll solidify, and it makes it easier to take the fat off. So if you were just making dry aged beef stock, you could stop at this point, season, you can package it up however you want, put it in the freezer, and then remember, we don't have any salt in here, so depending on what you're going to cook with it, then you can add salt or pepper or whatever you want to it. But I've decided that I am going to take this all the way down to a demi glaze. Now remember that we started out with about 8 quarts of water, and this is what we got out of it. A nice jellied stock. First thing I want to do is I'm going to see if I can lift this fat off in one piece. It's best done when you first take it out of the fridge, obviously. Let's see. So it's a little bit pliable. So yeah, we're going to take it off. And I want to scrape a little bit of the gel that's stuck to it, because that's flavor. Because as the fat comes up, it brings up some flavor with it. So I'm just going to scrape that initial layer off. Sometimes you got to be careful. So I want to get all that goodness back in. So now, demi-glace. What is a demi-glace? Demi-glace is a stock that is highly reduced, and you actually reduce it down until it is a paste. So it's like a syrup or a paste. So that's what I'm going to do, and the technique in doing this is you want to put it into a pot, reduce that down. Once you got it reduced, 50% or whatever, you're going to put it into a smaller pot. And you're going to keep doing that, smaller pot, until you get it to the point where it is very syrupy. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So I've got my pot over here. I'm going to pour this in, and you'll see how gelatinous this is. Lots of collagen. A little gloppy. Alright, I'm going to, again, scoop out everything that I can here. And now this is going to go on the stove at a very low simmer, no cover, and I'm going to reduce this down by 50%. So I'm looking at where the level is. I see it's about 3/4 of the way up the rivet of the handle, and that's going to be my gauge. And I'm going to put it on here. I will bring it to a boil, and then I'll lower it to a simmer. And that's the next step in making demi-glace. All right, so we've let this first reduction happen about an hour and a half of time on a very, very gentle simmer. And you can see that the color of it has completely changed. It was a really golden brown before. Now it is a darker kind of chestnut color. And you can see how far it's reduced. So I started, it was about 3/4 of the way up the rivet on the front handle. It's gone down about, I'm going to say 40%, and you want to do this really gently. So the next step is to take a smaller pot, and I'm just going to simply pour it in. I'm going to take note of the level. So we're just over a half full of this pot. Going to get it to that nice gentle simmer. And we're going to let this go to another, let's say 30 to 40% reduction. At that point, we're going to start getting to the, it's going to start thickening. The color's going to get a little darker. And our goal is to get it down to syrupy, even maybe a little pasty consistency. So that is step 3 of making dry aged beef demi-glace. Okay, so our second reduction of our dry aged beef demi-glace is complete. It's gone down again another 30 to 40%. And you'll notice, hopefully, that the color, the richness is happening. So what started out as a nice golden colored beef stock is now past the what I would call chestnut brown and is now getting to a caramel brown. And we're going to start our third reduction, and it's going to go down even more. It's going to concentrate the dry aged beef flavor even more. It's going to develop this beautifully dark, rich brown color. So just like we did on the last reduction, we're going to get a smaller pot, and we are going to pour it into here. And you can see on the side of the pot, you can see that ring. There's just some more impurities from our beef stock. And now we have our third and final reduction. We're going to take this one down until it's done. Again, bring it up to a boil. Again, taking note of the level. So we are about right here. So about halfway up the pot. I'm going to bring it down until this gets me that syrupy consistency that I'm looking for. So this is stage 3 of making dry aged beef demi-glace. All right, our dry aged demi-glace is done. And how can I tell? How can I tell it's done? First of all, look at this beautiful chocolate brown color. That's exactly what you're looking for. Listen, I could go all the way down and make it like a true syrupy syrup. But what I do, and this is my test, the old coat the back of the spoon test. We put a spoon in there, and it holds a line when you draw a line across. That's done. That's nice and thick. And the other way, it's really sticky. It's very potent, very strong. So we're going to walk over to cutting board. And now what do I do with it? So you can pour it into a glass container or a plastic container and keep it in your fridge if you'd like. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in an ice cube tray. Let me just show you this. I put a little bit of it on this glass dish. And we were talking about it being syrupy or a paste. I put a little bit of the hot onto this little glass dish, and I put it in the refrigerator for a little while, and look at the consistency of it. So when this cools down, you are going to get, and it is basically that jelly or that paste that we're looking for. I mean, it's really delicious, very potent. You add a tablespoon of this to a pan sauce or something, phenomenal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour it into something that I can pour it more easily into my ice cube tray. And I'm going to go ahead and fill an ice cube tray, and then this will go into the freezer. And because we've basically cooked out all of the water content, this won't freeze like an ice cube. It will solidify, and you know, where you can take them out and then maybe put them in a container. I wouldn't put them in a plastic bag because they're going to be like jelly. So put them into a container, and when you want to use one, just take one out and put it into a pan. Or again, you can put it in a plastic container, you know, without doing the ice cube tray thing, right into your fridge and have it at your disposal. So that is basically how you make a dry aged demi-glace from a big 7-8 quart pot of dry aged stock. Cook it down, change the pans, lower and lower and lower until you get it to this stage. And this makes a phenomenal addition to your cooking arsenal. So thanks for joining me on how to make this beautiful demi-glace. Have fun with your steak agers. I know I have fun with mine. And we will see you on the next steak ager video. Peace.